everybody. My name is Jessica Michaud. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Joanne and Sue. Already off to a great start with the Weight Management Summit. I'm a TLS certified coach. I am also a TLS trainer, the 2017 Trainer of the Year. And for those of you that are joining live, thank you for spending your Martin Luther King Day with us. And for those of you that are watching this recording, be sure to get out a pad and paper so you can start taking notes, not just from my session, but from everyone's sessions. I got so much already out of the earlier sessions tonight, and the next two nights are going to be exciting. As Beth said, we're at about 8,000 and change of people. If everyone just shares this with another person, we're going to be so close to be over 10,000, which is what we had last year. And what a great opportunity to share all this education with you so that we can really make 2018 the year that people are feeling good and feeling healthy. My goal tonight is to give you some tips. So tips on detoxing. Obviously, this is the first quarter of the year. So many of us have resolutions and we're detoxing right now. So I want to give you some quick tips on that. I just finished a detox week with a group of some amazing people, some of which that are on the group. So I know that detox is heavily survivable. Also want to talk about, for those of you that are now living this as a lifestyle, how do you eat out in restaurants? How do you go to weddings? And how do you go on cruises? And how do you make this and maintain this for a lifestyle? And then my last topic is talking about journaling. I often find that this is often the missing link for a lot of people. And when they add that to all their other tools that TLS offers you, it really becomes a complete package about how to do the program. I have some notes here, so if you see my eyes dart, it's just so that I don't forget anything to tell you. So just starting with detoxing, if you're using the 7-day detox like Sue talked about, and if you're not familiar with this sheet, definitely connect with the person who brought you onto the call so that you can take the weight loss profile. You can download these menu plans, or they can give you a copy of the menu plan. But the thing you'll find amazing with TLS is that we're a fully eating detox. So right off the bat, it's not just eating like shakes and soups and just stuff like that. This is about really eating food. And when you look on the back, you'll see, I know this is in reverse, but you'll see the list of all the different kinds of foods that you can have, and I'm sure there's a few items that you still can have that maybe won't be on here. But in general, we've covered just about everything. So unlimited vegetables, 3 servings of fruit, 2 servings of protein, 2 servings of good fats. You're going to find that you are satiated, which is pretty exciting. It's really about kind of the things that you're not eating. So I'm not going to go through the things that are actually on this sheet, because this is the stuff that you can read about, kind of the quick do's and don'ts. I really want to cover the stuff that I feel like helps my clients survive the week, because that's really the most important part. Because most of us are super scared going into detox week, and then by day 4 we're like, wow, that's not so bad. I have energy and I feel good. So the key is often just getting through this first 3 days, because that first day is like, wow, I used to eat all of this and now I'm not, and you might feel like, I miss all that stuff. So we all love the idea of bagels and bialys and ice cream. We get it, but we know our body doesn't always feel so good with it. So the exciting thing is on the back end of it, you're going to feel energy. And I know this for a fact because I've seen it with all the feedback in my group over the day yesterday, because they're just started Fat Shredder today. So you want to look through those food lists. You also want to make sure you go on to TLS Slim and look at all the recipes that are on there, because there's a lot of great recipes that you can take a look at. So the first big tip is don't plan too much. So if you have stuff already in the works, I get it. But in general, this is a week to focus on yourself, go through things like what Beth was talking about, and take ownership of your goals and your action plans, and take time to think and relax, okay? Because your body's going to be tired. It's going to be using all your stored fat for energy because it's a little calorically low. So we just want to kind of chill out for the week. No heavy exercise. The other big thing is that you really want to prep. So the worst thing is if you're hungry and you look around your refrigerator, or you're at work or somewhere and you don't have go-to food, right? And then all of a sudden you're at the snack vending machine, or you're getting a slice of pizza, and all of a sudden your detox lasted like 6 hours. So you really want to make sure that you've prepped. Now you can decide how your prep looks. Your prep can be chopping and dicing and sauteing and all that kind of stuff, which I definitely recommend, which we'll talk about. Or you can go to the grocery store now and buy stuff that's pre-chopped and pre-riced and pre-everything. There's no bigger prize at the end because you did it yourself or because you bought it. It just might cost you a little bit more money to buy it pre-done. So by all means, whatever it takes, but do that. Set aside a day or two. So be prepared for detox. So set aside a day or two where you are going to cook and prepare foods so that you can put them in containers for the week. Make sure you have snacks that are at the ready. Maybe if you're someone who, like me, who works at home, I always have in my refrigerator big containers of water with celery and carrots carrots and cucumbers and stuff that I can just grab very quickly. You might, if you're having smoothies, you might want to have a bunch of different bags of pre-made smoothies that have all, not fully pre-made, but have all your berries and your vegetables and stuff in them, so you can just add them to your NutriBullet and some water. By all means, add extra veggies to your smoothies. Things like cauliflower have no taste, and they're going to give you some more nutrition. You can make very simple soups, like roasting vegetables and getting an emulsifier stick and just adding some veggie broth and having stuff like that in the freezer or in the refrigerator at the ready. Having simple snacks like grape tomatoes with kosher salt and dill that you can just grab and snack at out of the refrigerator, or those the bags of the mini peppers are all great things that you can graze on. Our bodies have not changed since we were babies. So for those of you that have little kids, you know that your babies were hungry every couple of hours. Nothing in our chemistry and our biology changed. The only thing that changed was school hours and work hours and our schedules. So you be prepared to be hungry every couple of hours, and be prepared to have food there at the ready. You might also want to start rethinking your breakfast. This was probably the single greatest change that I made when I began the TLS program, because my breakfast, I'm sure, was like all of your breakfasts. It was a bagel, a corn muffin, something like that. And at the time, I thought that that was probably a good choice because I really hadn't connected the dots. So think of breakfast like it could be your dinner from the night before. Often I find my breakfast now is like shredded Brussels sprouts with carrots and cabbage and an egg on top. It's winter for those of us, at least in the Northeast, or even in the South, it seems a little bit, it's cold. You can think of having soups for breakfast and stuff like that. So I'm trying to rethink a little bit of your breakfast, but it's certainly you're going to be wanting to have protein and fiber in the morning to get you started. Rethink sandwiches. So I know that's a default lunch for so many people, but think about how you wrap that sandwich. Maybe it's in lettuce, maybe it's a tomato cut in half and it's on the top and the bottom, or zucchini on the top and the bottom, or a mushroom on the top of the bottom. But rethink how you do that. Change up your textures, change up your flavors. So your textures could be having some things that are raw, some things that are sauteed. Your flavors could be adding dill and adding Italian seasoning and adding Indian flavoring and adding curry and sriracha sauce, and things that are going to change it up for you so that it feels interesting and feels exciting. Using some key tools like a Cuisinart, like the Spiralizer, Veggetti, the Instant Pot, a NutriBullet, things like that are really cool. Some of the other things I like, that 7-day detox that Sue talked about, I find is great because it really helps you feel satiated. The fiber powder is really gives you prebiotics and probiotics and puts a lot of fiber in your diet. And then obviously the liver cleanse and the release tablets. The trim tea is a great way to sort of get a little bit of caffeine in your diet, but also have something that's alkalizing in your body. That's been a big favorite for a lot of my clients now that they can add that into their detox week. The biggest tip I can give you is about stacking vegetables. So we can have unlimited vegetables, but it can get pretty boring to just eat a salad every single meal or just have stir fry every single night. That being said, if you're comfortable with that, by all means do that. But I find the best tip I can give my clients is to find ways to be creative about getting a variety of different vegetables in a variety of different formats into every meal. So my best kind of example of that is something that was big in my group this week, which was taking cauliflower, which I have to tell you, I never thought I liked cauliflower. It is the most versatile vegetable, especially if you don't think of it just as roasted cauliflower. So if you get it riced, so I often buy the cauliflower, I'll rice the whole head, I'll put it in the refrigerator riced, and then I'll grab it to use however I want to use it. So if you take about a cup of the cauliflower, add an egg, salt and pepper, and then saute it in a saute pan, make kind of like a little bit of a pancake with it, and then treat it as the base. Treat it as the base for sauteed spinach. Put it on a bed of raw spinach. Add an egg. Add a slice of avocado on top. Add some tomatoes on top. And now you have a variety of vegetables, a lot of color, some raw, some cooked, and you have a variety of amounts of fiber. And you're getting more veggies in your diet and your meal without feeling like you're just eating a bowl of lettuce or just having a big bag of broccoli. You could use that same cauliflower base below a grass-fed burger or below a piece of chicken or something like that. Think of that cauliflower as the base of a salad. You can add cauliflower acts as like it's kind of tasteless. So you could add raw cabbage and add raw spinach and cucumbers and add some apple cider vinegar. And that kind of sits in my refrigerator every week as something I even just grab by the spoonful. You could take chicken meatballs or turkey meatballs and add diced zucchini in there, or add spinach in there and pack your vegetables inside the meatballs. And that's a great way to add protein into your diet. So even though we talk about 2 servings of protein, if you're finding yourself tired or having some brain fog, clearly protein would be the thing to add. Much better than grabbing a slice of pizza or, cheating in some way. So just grab a couple of more meatballs or have a hard-boiled egg on hand. My other favorite thing to do with the cauliflower when it's riced is I make something called like a cauliflower cup. And I'll take the cauliflower, I'll add a little bit of a raw egg, like scrambled raw egg, as a binder sort of, and then whatever veggies I have in hand, and you don't be crazy about what it is, just whatever you have, make it colorful. And then I put them in muffin tins and I bake them for 10 or 15 minutes. And then I can just grab them as I need them. They're so filling. Take that cauliflower muffin and then put it over raw spinach or cooked spinach and build out your meal from there. You can do the same thing with an egg, right? I'm sure you guys have seen this, but take, muffin tins as well, put some mixed scrambled egg in it and throw whatever veggies you have and then bake them, freeze them, have them in the refrigerator and grab them, okay? So you just want to make sure you have stuff on the go. Another big thing I'm sure you guys are getting or seeing a lot of is spiralized veggies. So getting the Vegetti or getting, isn't that funny to say Vegetti, and getting the spiralizer, those are great tools to be able to have as a base of a meal. So when I'm cooking with my family and they're having pasta with something, for me to be able to use spiralized zucchini and put my homemade sauce or my, roasted vegetables or something on top is really great. The other challenge I find with Detox Week, and Sue talked about this a little bit, is that when kids are eating one thing and we're eating another, sometimes that's weird, right? But we want to make food for everybody. So the key is, without restricting anybody else, how do you customize your meals and make it fit for you? So a great thing that I like to do is use like a zucchini boat. So for example, if it's taco night at my house, even if it's Detox Week and I'm using ground turkey or something and I'm using some homemade seasonings, they might have it in the taco shell, but I can just take and carve out a zucchini boat and put the meat inside that and bake it, and I still feel like I'm having tacos with them, if that makes any sense. My last kind of tip as far as the veggie part of it is I like putting the Cuisinart mini chopper. I'll take spinach and put it in that and chop it up really fine. This was a trick to get my kids to eat vegetables. And I would add it to scrambled eggs, because when you add it to scrambled eggs, if you chop it up really fine like that, it doesn't change the texture of this. It might make it green, obviously, but you guys are grown up, so you can handle that. Even my kids can handle that. But it didn't change the taste and the texture of the scrambled eggs like it did if I just nicely chopped up the spinach. So I do that, and I add it into sauces, and I add it into scrambled eggs, like I said, or meatballs or things like that. The other big thing, one more idea, is cabbage. So I wasn't a big cabbage eater either, but the red cabbage, which I find so sweet and delicious, I like slicing it up raw, putting it in salads. I like sauteing it with eggs. And if you slice it like a steak with garlic and salt and pepper and just roast it at 400, delicious. Add seasoning, and lots of water. So like Beth and Joanne were talking about, I'm a big fan of putting the rubber bands around your water bottles. Make sure you're having water, but maybe put some lemon in it and put some other taste in it to change it up so you don't get bored. So now how do you transition this to eating out in restaurants, okay? So the challenge for those of us, whether you're on Detox Week or whether you're on any meal plan, is how do you survive in the real world? So during my group this week, it was sort of cool because one of the women that were in my group, I know she's listening, was going to a Mexican restaurant with friends, and the big question to the group was, how do I survive the restaurant? So the first thing I can suggest that you do, which is what we did for her, is we looked at the menu. We all have access to the internet now, and just about every restaurant has their menus online. So we went and looked at the menu, figured out what she could eat. There's lots of great stuff you can eat at Mexican restaurants. Clearly, it's not the flour tortilla and the chips, but there's protein and vegetables. So we just figured out based on the menu what she could eat. So prepare in advance. Drink water before you go so you're not that hungry. Don't wear elastic pants. That's like a big thing. Ask for a to-go container. So for any of you guys eating like Chevy's or Macaroni and Grills or some of those Chili's, they often have really big servings, and it's too much protein for you to eat in one sitting. So I would often sit down and I would ask for a to-go container up front. I would take half my meal and put half of it in the to-go container and then have what's left of my plate. If you really feel you need to go back to the to-go container to get more, you have it, but ideally you've taken it off your plate, which will help. So here's a trick that I learned when I was young. So my mom was a big coffee drinker. So she would sit in the restaurant for a long time and drink coffee. And, coffee's always really hot, so it would take forever. And my dad was of the belief that the waiter could not take anybody's plates until everybody was done. So if I was done first, and I didn't want to finish my plate, I would sit there kind of picking at the plate, waiting for everyone to finish. So I started putting pepper all over my dish because I was done with it and I didn't want to eat anymore. So that's my secret trick. If you're done, the waiter hasn't taken your plate yet, and you're still sitting there engaged in your conversation, pepper it up or salt it up or put Tabasco on it or something that will stop you from eating it. Read between the lines. So you want to say yes to things like roasted and braised and grilled and broiled and pan-seared. Those are all good tips. Things that are like buttery, sauteed, pan-fried, Newburgh, Thermidor, au gratin, things like that are going to be not as good choices. Bread and alcohol. So Sue talked a little bit about the alcohol before. So again, this is about which menu plan you're on. So on some of the menu plans, you'll find obviously you can have whole grains. Alcohol is never really going to be on any of the menu plans. For that, you really need to go back to your goals and see if it's derailing your progress. But the reality is in life, to do anything as a lifestyle, alcohol is going to creep in for most of us. So the question is, how do you deal with that out in the real world? So the challenge with eating bread or alcohol is that it often happens prior to our food, right? You're either at the bar before you sit down, or the bread comes to the table before you sit. So if you haven't eaten, you now have an empty stomach, that bread or that alcohol is going to spike your blood sugar, right, and put you into fat storage mode. And now you could probably have a really healthy, even a boring meal, and depending on how slow your metabolism is, your body might store whatever you eat as fat. So we want to get you in fat burning mode. So for those of you that have been following the program, you know that 3 things will lower the glycemic index of a meal: fat, fiber, and protein. So that might be as simple as being at the bar, maybe not on detox week, but adding a nut or adding something that's going to lower the glycemic index. Or if you can, ideally wait to have that alcohol or have that bread till you're having your whole meal, so that the glycemic impact of your whole meal is lower and it's being offset by some of the vegetables that you have. The challenge with alcohol is that some people have the philosophy of they're going to save their calories for the alcohol. So then they're drinking on an empty stomach, and alcohol is the first thing to metabolize. Your liver metabolizes that quickly, and it really immediately stores it as fat. So having an empty stomach is not the answer for that. So the other key is kind of what you mix your alcohol with. So are you doing it with club soda and seltzer as opposed to tonic and things that are sugary? And then having lower glycemic alcohol. So things like vodka or tequila might be better choices for you. Not suggesting that is the plan, in any way, but just really about how to eat out and maintain it as a lifestyle. For those of you that are not big cooks, one of the partner stores on shop.com, for the person who invited you here, they can kind of hook you up, is a store called Bistro MD, which are pre-made meals, and that might make eating on the go really simple for you. The food is so good. It's frozen, so I always like to say, it is what it is, but it really tastes good. It's real salmon and real Brussels sprouts and real asparagus and real chicken, and tastes really good. The other thing is a partner store called Chef D, which is kind of like a Hello Fresh. But actually, I like it a little better for one reason. My challenge with HelloFresh is you had to eat whatever their menu was for that week. And I have kids with food allergies, so most often the meals weren't the things that I could have. And if I liked a meal, I might not see it again. So what I like about Chef D is they have a variety of different food items that you can pick, but you can pick whatever you want. And if it's one dish that you like, you can have it all the time. So actually, the person who invited you on the call could give you a menu plan for both Bistro MD and Chef D that's based on the menu plan that you're following, and give you the food items that you can order. So it really makes that easy if that's something that's more simple for you. So the other tips I have are to really, be in control. So that might come in the form of ordering first. So I'm really bad with a menu. So sometimes it's easier for me to just be the first person to order, because that way you're not swayed with what everybody else is doing. A really simple trick to just start from tomorrow for the rest of your life is to get your salad dressing on the side and your sauces on the side. Even if you decide you want to put the whole salad dressing back on your plate, better for you to be the one that's in control of that decision. When I was younger, I was starting to figure out that I had a dairy issue, but I'm 51, so I grew up in a time where my mom was simply like, eat the dairy, drink your milk and eat the ice cream. And my dad worked for Kraft, so there's a lot of, Kraft cheese in our house. But I was starting to self-eliminate and figure out that dairy didn't really make me feel that good. And one of the things that I remember was that I would always order Eggs Benedict for breakfast when we would go out to diners. And I remember starting to, at a pretty young age, get the hollandaise sauce on the side. And it's funny when I think about it now, because I really had not connected it, but that I just would start to put my fork into the hollandaise sauce, get a little taste of it, and then have the rest of the meal with it. I do the same with salad dressing, blue cheese dressing, every once in a while. That's the thing I want to, cheat with and eat. But if I can just dip my fork in it, I get all the flavoring of it without my salad being saturated with it. So getting this stuff on the side really makes a big help for you. The other thing is customizing. So perhaps you don't have a potato, but you have 2 servings of vegetables. You're allowed to ask for what you want. I think the other big kind of memory I have was being at a ground round with someone who had gotten a raw hamburger and was nervous about sending it back because they were scared the waiter or whatever would do something to the burger. And I just remember sitting there thinking, why wouldn't you want to ask for what you want? And now that I have kids with food allergies, I could never imagine going to a restaurant and not being very clear about the food that I'm ordering, asking for things or items that my kids are ordering to be adjusted based on their food allergies. So I often recommend to my clients, treat your food choices as if they were life-threatening. So if someone was going to make a birthday cake and bring it into the office party, or let's say for me, if someone made me an ice cream cake for my birthday, I have to say, I don't eat dairy, so I really wouldn't have the ice cream cake. I would still love them and enjoy the party, but that wouldn't be what I have. You get to decide how hardcore you want to be about that, but you also get to be in control of that. And it's okay to say, no, I don't eat that, without having to be like, no, I'm on a diet. It's just not what you eat. And that's really how, when you start to make this a lifestyle choice, you have to get rid of the thought process that you are being restricted by something that somebody is making you do. The best way I can explain it is when I go out, I feel like I'm eating and I'm living and I'm eating the foods that I eat, and not every meal is perfect, but I'm making choices on the best information that I have at that given moment. And if they're not the best of choices, then the next day I get right back on the track. That's where actually detoxing becomes, I think, really exciting for people, because if they start to plateau, if you feel like you're plateauing, and that means you haven't lost weight, inches, or body fat in 3 to 4 weeks. So if one of those items is moving, you have not plateaued. But if you really feel like you're plateauing, sometimes even a quick 3-day detox will jumpstart your metabolism again. The key is once you've done the detox the first time, you start to really realize that it's not so hard, especially when you realize you're eating so much. So just kind of keep that in mind and be in control when you're eating out in restaurants. So the biggest thing is that it gets easier. So one of the ways that it gets easier is by owning the information, and that comes from journaling. So for those of you that aren't familiar, TLS has an incredible 100 or 200 pages of journaling information. So definitely connect with the person who brought you on the call to take a look at it. But just coming off of eating out menus, and I don't have glasses on, so I can't really read it, but there's a whole section on eating out in restaurants, and it actually breaks down by different kinds of ethnic restaurants, what are the good choices and what are the bad choices. So you can go look at Italian and Mexican and French and Indian and kind of figure out what are your best choices in those restaurants. So in the journal, there's 12 chapters that cover different topics of education. Also on the TLS Slim site that you can go to of the person who brought you here, there are videos that can connect with each chapter that is in the journal. But here's the key to the journal. I know that some of you have journaled, some of you have stopped, some of you have started, some of you don't see the value in it, some of you think it's annoying. I get it. But studies show categorically that those who journal have more success than those who don't. And it's a lot of what Beth was saying about goals. When you connect it to your brain, when you write it down, when you own the information, that's when change starts to happen. And you also need to see trends, and you need to see what is going in your body, because it's very easy to forget about the crust of our kids' grilled cheeses and the bite of macaroni. And we all know that we believe that if you stand in front of the refrigerator, that food doesn't count if you're eating it, but it does. I hate to tell you. So I found that there's really 2 main reasons for journaling. Okay. The first is to know what you're eating. Okay. So if you have a coach, the first thing your coach is going to ask you is, what do you eat? And if you're like me, I would say 50% of the people that I've coached come to me and say, I eat well, I eat good. And I always have to break it down, because their version of good and my version of good might be different. And the way that they're laying out their good, they might think it's good. And most people genuinely think it's good, but it just might not be good for them. and it might not be good for them based on what their goals are. So we want to look at quantity and we want to look at quality. From a quantity standpoint, we want to make sure that you're living up to the items that are in the 5 different menu plans. So what I love about the TLS journal is you can literally check off with these little dots, vegetables, proteins, and things like that. We want to make sure you're not starving. One of the best things that I saw in my Facebook group yesterday was everybody who was completely satiated on detox week. And today, someone had put in there that they were so full by the time dinner came, they weren't really ready for dinner. Okay? That's because we're eating good foods that are satiating you. So we want to make sure we're having the right quantity. We also want to make sure we're having the right quality, because as Sue talked about, every calorie is not created equal. You could have 100 calories of potato chips and 100 calories of broccoli, not the same. So we want to actually look at what you're actually eating. So what do we want to do with this information? We want to see if you're on track, right? Because that's super important. And the biggest thing to me is we want to know how you feel. And not just, I'm mad at my coach because I'm eating this food. We want to know, do you have energy? Are you bloated? How's your skin? Are you gassy? Are you going to the bathroom too much? Are you tired? Is your joint pain gone? Do you have more energy? Is your skin clearing up? Is your hair really shiny? Are your fingers less bloated? Are your rings? Oh my God, your wedding ring is back on your finger. These are the things that we want you, and I love in their journal, you have this whole area where you can talk about your goals, but you can write here about how you feel. That's the most important thing that you can write down, because what we want to do is start to connect the dots between food and the way that you're making you feel. That is how I stopped having dairy, okay? Nobody liked ice cream better than me, okay? I swear to you, there isn't any one of you out there that liked Haagen-Dazs vanilla chip ice cream better than me. But I would sit with my husband and I'd be eating, and at some point I'd turn to him and I'd say, is my tongue supposed to be as thick as it is? Is my stomach supposed to feel the way it does? And it's not. So it took me many times of owning that information. Didn't happen the first day. Didn't happen the first time I connected the dot between bagels and my bloating belly, okay? I don't have celiac, but I have massive gluten sensitivity. It took me a lot of times to think maybe it was just yesterday and it won't be today. That's how we learn. That's how we make it a lifestyle. But if you don't write it down, I can't express it enough. If you don't own it and if you don't take it to heart, you will never make the change, because none of us want to give up bagels. I promise you. And if it were easy, everybody would be fit and healthy. And maybe that's the hardest thing to hear, because it is a journey. It is a daily choice. But owning the information is going to help you get there. So we want to be able to connect the dots. The second thing we want to do, so the first thing is what you're eating. The second thing is what kind of eater you are. Okay, so also in this sort of area on the journal, you want to be saying, I had a fight with my husband and now I'm having the Haagen-Dazs, or I just got a promotion and now I'm having the Haagen-Dazs, or I just got sad news and I'm having the Haagen-Dazs. You want to be able to connect the dots between what kind of eater are you. Are you someone who's hiding stuff under your bed and not admitting out loud or to yourself that you've eaten it? Are you grazing all day long? Are you someone who is a worried eater? Do you have anxiety? All these other things, which so many of us do. This is a mental issue. Food is a legal drug, and we are using it in so many ways to self-sabotage ourselves, and we're all struggling. We're all trying to figure it out. It's a journey for all of us. But unless you can start to connect those dots, not only how does food make you feel, but how are you using food to make you feel? You're never going to be able to make the change. And that's sort of the key. Because at the end of the day, especially if you're using it if you're sad, ironically, you eat the donut, you feel good for like a second because it has sugar, so it boosts your serotonin, and then it drops. That's what I love about that core product. That core product, in studies, raises your serotonin level super high, so way better to get it from something like that than from the donut. So my final thoughts here are, again, how do you make it a lifestyle? So I feel like I've been coaching this program now for, I guess, almost 10 years. I have to say, this program changed everything about my health. I was not overweight. I was thick. I had a mom body, and I thought I ate healthy. I was that person that if a coach said to me, what do you eat? I'd say, oh, I eat pretty good. I eat healthy. But I had bread or pasta in every single meal I ever had until I had fish for the first time on my honeymoon when I was 29. I started, like Beth, I don't know all of Beth's health histories, but I had thyroid issues like Beth did, and that's an autoimmune condition. I have Graves' disease, and when I started to connect the dots between food, haha, funny Cam, between food and the way it makes you feel, that's when everything changed for me about my health. And it was this program and it was journaling that really did it for me. So when I talk about the ways to help make this a lifestyle, I've come down to two things. The first is your goal. Because at the end of the day, when you're alone in your house at 11 o'clock at night and the bag of chips, that's my other tip. Don't have the bag of chips in your house. If it's not in your house, you likely aren't going to eat it. But if it's there because the rest of your family eats it, when you're alone at 11 o'clock at night, what's going to stop you from just walking downstairs and saying one bag of chips is going to make a difference? The only thing that's going to make that difference is your goal. So if your goal is, it'd be nice to lose 5 to 10 pounds, you might go get the chips. If your goal is, I've got to lose 10 pounds or I'm not going to fit into that dress for the wedding, that's a different kind of goal. If your goal is, it'd be great if I could lose 70 pounds this year, that's one goal. If your goal is, if I don't lose 70 pounds, I'm going to be diabetic, that's a different goal. So you need to own your goal. And then the last thing, like I was saying before, is having a physical, either visual or physical feeling about how foods make you feel. Because when you're on the go and your family goes to the bagel store, something has to stop you from getting that bagel versus getting some eggs and spinach in a platter. Okay? And the only thing that's going to do that is your goal and you owning how that food makes you feel. So those are really, I guess, my biggest tips for you guys. My time's up. Thank you for being a part of it. And like Beth said, pay it forward. If you liked what you're hearing, add people to the group, because once we hit when Sue archives the group, probably on Thursday or Friday, you won't be able to add anybody in it. So pay it forward. This is a program where I can't express enough. I became a coach because I wanted to share with people what I knew. It wasn't because I had degrees in medicine. I wanted to just be able to educate and help others. So if you're someone who has had success with this program, talk with the person who brought you on here about how you can help pay it forward and share the success with everyone. And let's get everybody healthy in 2018. Take care.